Hello everyone. Welcome to my stream. My name is Chris Jones and I've never done this before. This is a complete first for me. I thought as it's a new year, I thought I'd give a stream a go. Um, I'm going to be doing mostly coding using C Sharp and .NET Core, uh, possibly a little bit of JavaScript here and there. Um, So my kind of background is I got into IT about 8 years ago. I've always been into IT as like a kid and teenager, but I never really had the appetite to go off to university to get a degree. Um, so what I ended up doing is I ended up working in a call center for a local insurance firm and fortunately, a project came up. My boss put me forward for it, and I ended up spending 6 years as a QA in our testing team department. Um, and I'm a self-taught developer, and I kind of dropped a few hints along the way, and then about a about a year, well, nearly 2 years ago now, I had my second interview for a developer position and I was lucky enough to be given the opportunity to move into a junior year developer role, um, which is what I'm doing now. I don't really know if I'm classed as a junior developer anymore, having been doing it for a couple of years. There's still a lot I know I need to learn, but I thought, well, as it's a new year, I'll try and do something outside of my comfort zone, and I've kind of been inspired to do this by watching some other streams as well. And last night, just on New Year's Eve, I was just having a flick through Twitter, and one of the streamers that I watch, who stream regularly about 3 or 4 times a week, was mentioning something around kind of around like weight loss. And this time last year, a couple of family members started trying to do a competition, myself included, to basically track weight loss and just kind of give it a bit of a competitive edge, I guess, between the few of us that were doing it. And I kind of went off and I thought, well, I'll try and build a website for us to try and track it against. And I thought, well, why not resurrect the project and I'll do it as part of a stream. I've got a couple of colleagues at the moment who were also in testing space, and they're now picking up uh, some more development-ish type tasks. So I thought I've been helping them out at work, so why not do a little bit in my spare time and try and do do a stream. I don't have a set schedule or anything at the moment. That's something that I need to kind of try and work out. It's pretty much going to be a bit of an ad hoc thing to start off with. But we'll see how it goes, and hopefully I might be able to um, help people out. I have got a chat running, hopefully. So we'll just see how this goes. Um, First things I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new website using Visual Studio. I'm going to be using .NET Core, and I'm just going to try and be building this up. And like the goal of the website is people can register for it. They can enter their body measurements. So things so we'll want them to be able to track their weight, but we'll also want to let them be able to input other body measurements as well. So things like um, wrist, biceps, chest, bust, waist, and that sort of thing. Um, and for them to be able to kind of either create a group or join a group. Um, and yeah, and over time plot their progress on a graph, and for that particular group, do like a comparison over time. So for all the members in that group, have a graph where the where they can see their progress as a percentage overall from their starting weight, and see how they're comparing to all of the other members in their group. So that's kind of the plan. Like I say, I did initially start building this out last year. Kind of like didn't really get too far, so I thought I'd resurrect it and just start it from scratch and try and do it as part of a stream. Um, so the first things I am going to do is I'm going to load up GitHub and create a repository. So it's all going to be open sourced, and we'll so if anyone out there wants to take a look at the code and grab the code and even submit pull requests if there's something they think that they can do, then by all means do it. So I'm going to try and talk my way through most of this as I'm doing it. Hopefully there's not going to be too much background noise. I know I do have a friend who's currently watching. As I've mentioned, I've never done this before, so he's just been helping me make sure that all of my microphone levels and everything. There he is. Hey Andre, thank you for the follow. Um, so yeah, so hopefully I'll get a few more followers over the course of time. But yeah, we'll just see how we get on. So like I say, the first things I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new repository. So I'm over here on GitHub, and the kind of name I was thinking of giving this, just for the fact that I can't think of anything else to call it at the moment, is going to be Community Fit Challenge. And so this is going to be a website where users can track so a website where users can track weight loss and body measurements against friends and family, if I can spell that. There we go. And it's going to be public, and we'll just give it a standard MIT license. So once this has created the repository, we'll be able to pull this down. There we go. So now if I open up command line, right, there we go. So first things I'm going to do is I'm going to make a new directory on my C drive. So and I'm going to go into the new directory, and I'm going to clone this repository. There we go. And now I can go into that, and as you can see, there's nothing in there at the moment other than just the license. Okay, so now that we've done that, I am going to open up Visual Studio and I'm going to create a new project. It's going to be a .NET Core website, so ASP.NET Core web application. I'm going to set this to the new folder that I've just created, so Stream Repos, Community Fit Challenge. I'll select that folder, and this is going to be the Community Fit Challenge.web project. I'm not going to create a new directory for the solution, and I'm not going to create a new Git repository because I've already done that. So OK that and let Visual Studio do its thing. So we're going to have it as a web application. Because we want people signing up to the website, I'm going to use the built-in user management. So you'll select the individual user accounts and we'll store the user accounts in app, which just basically means we'll have a database behind the scenes. So, okay, that. And this is now going to pretty much just give us a bootstrapped website that we can start to use for this. So if anyone does have any questions, feel free to stick them in the chat. So out of the box, Visual Studio does give us a templated website, bootstrapped website, whatever you want to call it, which it's thinking about doing for me currently. And it's decided that it's going to go really slow. Right, here we go. So here we can see we've got our Solution Explorer. So we've got all the default pages that we've got. So we're doing this using something called Razor Pages. So it's slightly different to MVC. So the idea behind, instead of having model view controllers, each view has a code behind file, which will have all of the C# and server-side code contained in it. So rather than having a controller and then a separate view file, you'll have the view file with essentially the controller code that sits behind it. So, just off the bat, if I control F5, which will just run the project, won't debug it or anything. Get rid of some of these windows, and we should see a local version of this spin up and open up in a Chrome browser. So it's just doing all of its restoring the packages and getting everything ready for us. So the first time that you do this, it can sometimes take a little while, just because it's got to go out onto the internet to restore all of the packages that are required. So my plan is I'm going to be doing this hopefully on a relatively regular frequency, but I'm also planning on uploading the videos after doing a stream onto YouTube. So it seems to be the best way of doing things like this. And if anyone does have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on Twitter or yeah, raise an issue on GitHub. So this has actually taken a really long time. It doesn't normally quite take this long. Let's see what's going on. That's really helpful. Can't actually see what it's doing. So why? So it wouldn't normally quite take as long as this. So we'll see what it's doing. Come on, Visual Studio, you can do this. So one of the just while I'm waiting, try and fill some of the time in. Um, One of the other things that I'm aiming to do within the next couple of days as well, I've been working on creating a blog over the last couple of weeks. I aim to have that online within the next couple of days. Gonna be putting stuff on there about various development things. So how-tos, tutorials, things like that. If there's any worthwhile blog posts you think, feel free to drop me a line, and if it's something I can do, be more than happy to try and help. And I think Visual Studio's finally finished restoring everything that it needs, and should hopefully be trying to spin up a local version of this very basic website. Or not. So let's try this again. I'm not entirely certain why that happened. Okay. Okay, so we have a website that's just launched using IIS. And if I now bring over my Chrome window, we should hopefully see when it loads. I'm currently trying to stream off just the one machine at the moment. It does seem to be struggling a little bit. So if this is something that does take off, I might have to look at upgrading some of my kit, but we'll see about that in the future. I don't particularly want to bung out hundreds of pounds for something that doesn't necessarily take off. So, yes, Andre, first stream hiccups. How about that? Yeah, I probably will a little bit later on, Andre, once I've got a bit more comfortable doing something like this. So, yeah, we'll see how this one goes, and de depending on if I can set up a regular schedule so that people can then plan accordingly. So it does kind of look like my laptop is slowly dying at the moment under the pressure. Uh, so let's try closing a few things to see if that helps. Yeah, there we go. So here is a very basic website that's been built for us, just completely out of the box from Visual Studio. So as you can see here, we've got a GDPR type banner. Um, so that's kind of been baked into the template for the website, and got a couple of links here. There's a register and a login. So this won't work yet because we need to hook up to a database, and got the login, and I do believe there should. Okay, so we've ended up starting it in debugging mode, which I didn't particularly want to do, so I'm just going to stop that. So here we go. So here's our homepage again. So if I flick it back over to Visual Studio, you can see that we've got a couple of pages already here for us. So we've got the index page, which is currently what's being displayed. We've got a privacy, which is the one that I showed you a minute ago, and we've got a standard error page. So first thing that we kind of need to do is to get it hooked up to a database. So one of the database providers that I tend to use quite a lot is the MySQL database, and there's an organization out there called Pomelo that have written an entity framework provider, and entity framework is a relational mapper that allows us to manage the database for us. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to install that package, and to do that I'm going to come down to the NuGet package manager under tools, select package manager console, which opens a separate window. Just pin that here for the time being, and I am going to install the package. Pomelo dot, and this is where I'm not going to be able to remember the namespace of it. So Entity Framework Core MySQL. We just pull in all of the dependencies down for this. And one of the other things that I tend to use quite a lot is Docker, which is a containerization platform, and it allows us to kind of run things kind of without not necessarily needing to install it. And one of the things is a MySQL server that we can use for that. So if we were to look at Docker for a MySQL server, I can just come here, look at the Docker hub. So I've been playing around with Docker in the last few months, and I'm fairly comfortable with it. I wouldn't say I'm an advanced user, but I've certainly been able to do some fairly good stuff with it. So what I'm going to do, so this will probably be quite quick for me because I've probably already got the Docker image, but I'm going to come back over here to a command prompt, and I'm going to want a PowerShell command prompt for this. So I'll get rid of that. I'm just going to paste in that command, and this should hopefully tell me that most of the stuff it needs is already going to be on my machine. Or not, as the case may be. So I may have deleted the image at one point in the past. So just while we're waiting for that, I'll just pull that over to the side. We can find out how easy it is to run. That will literally just spin up a new container for us. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to move that back over here. Okay, so that's now downloaded for us. So what I'm going to do is I've got a command that I've written previously to spin up a MySQL database in Docker, which, if I can find it, so I'm just going to use this example one that they've given us. So the -it is to do it as an interactive. The MySQL one is the name that we're going to give it, and so that's to connect to it. So what we want to do is to actually run. So no, that's not worked. So here we go. So it's now going to spin up a MySQL server for me inside a Docker container. And if I now run, this should show me all of the running containers that I've got currently. And we can see that we do have a MySQL. I've got a couple of MySQLs actually starting. But yeah, so this is the one that's currently running and is up. So I'm just going to run that again just to make sure that one hasn't exited it. I think we're okay. I think that is going to work. So although they're listening, they appear to be listening on the same ports. I think because they've got different names, we're okay. So I should. So it's now asking me for a password, which we should see, I believe. So what I need to do, so according to these Docker documents, is we need to set a new password. So I've not entered anything in the password field, and it's connected me into the database, but it does require us to set a new password. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to issue this command, and I'm just going to give it a password of admin123, and that's now kicked me out. Okay, so I've just been asked to make the command line font a little bit bigger. I can. So how's that? Okay, so the password has actually changed for the container, but I now can't get in using either my default password or the real password. So what I'm going to do for the time being is I'm just going to put this to one side, and I do already have anti-browser writing. Okay, because I've completely forgotten how to do this. So I know there's a really good blog post by Scott Hanselman who done who's done some of this stuff before, and it was to do with something that was to do with migrating WordPress onto being hosted as a .NET Core project. So if I do a search for WordPress and wait for the search, here we go. So here we go. Really nice, easy command line to get a MySQL database up and running. So I'm just going to run. In fact, what I'm going to do before I do that, I'm just going to kill all of my running Docker containers. Although I think my laptop is having other ideas at the moment. Right, so I want to remove forcefully anything that is listed. This is quite a cool command, so rather than having to go through and delete each container one by one, for those that do know Docker, you can just do this in PowerShell and it will just delete all of your currently running containers. Just give this a few seconds to run. There we go, and now it's listed all of the containers that it's now killed. And I should now be able to see this new MySQL command, and it should now spin up a nice new container with a password of password and a database name WordPress, but that doesn't matter. We'll ignore that for the time being. Okay, so I've already got something listed on port 3306 possibly. So what I'm going to do is, so the way these port numbers are mapped, it is, I believe, the left hand side is the port number of your host machine, so that is my physical laptop, and the port number on the right hand side is of the container. So we want 3306 to be 3306, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my port number that I want to connect to I'm going to do 5016. Okay, and okay, because it tried to run, so the error message I've just got is because the container is already trying to run, even though there's a port conflict. So if I look at the current running instances, I will see that I've got one running. So I need to get rid of that. So you don't actually have to type out the full container name either. You can just, as long as it's enough for it to be unique, you can just put in the first 2 or 3 characters of the container name. So let's try this again. And hopefully this will now be spinning up a MySQL database server in the background. that we can connect to. And something else that I do also have installed on my local machine, I think these are just standard error messages. I think these are okay just to be ignored. Yeah, what I was about to say is on my local machine, I have MySQL Workbench installed. Just just gives us a nice GUI to be able to connect to the database and interrogate it and see what the structure of the database is and what data is currently contained in there. So I can close these tabs off now. Need these. So I think I am going to need to rethink some of my setup because I don't think I can. So the machine that I'm currently using is a Surface Pro 4 with an i7 16 gig of RAM, but I think trying to run the Visual Studio and all of the OBS software at the same time, think it's struggling a little bit under the pressure. So I might have to revisit the setup that I've currently got because it is running fairly slowly. Um, but we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it and we'll see what happens in the future. Um, right, so if I just move this over to the side, not that side, because you can't see that. And I can also now bring over my MySQL Workbench. Very good, Andre, but most of the other stuff I've got running is stuff that I kind of need. So we can now see that the MySQL is ready for connections. So what I should be able to do, I'm going to call this Docker Stream MySQL, and it's on port 5016, username of root, and the password of password. So I'll do test connection. There we go. So we've got a successful connection into the Docker container. So because of that, I will now add that into my list here, and I should be able to get a SQL editor open. So there we go, and we gave it a database name of WordPress. That doesn't really matter, but you can see it's there. There's no tables currently in there. We can create one if we want to. And this is going to tell me it's going to want at least one column. So I'll do an ID, blah blah blah. Apply that. There we go. So, and now we can expand the table so we can see that there's now a test table in there with a column of ID test. Right, so now what I want to do is I want to connect our Visual Studio solution up to a database. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use something called user secrets. Basically just means that I'm not going to be committing um, any confidential information into source control. Um, so to do that, I'm just going to right click on the project name up here and come down here and click on manage user secrets. And what this is just a JSON file that's held in a completely separate location outside of the repository. Um, so Visual Studio knows how to find this, but it will never get committed into source control. So what I need to do is I need to create a property of connection string, which is an object, and we're going to call this MySQL, and a connection string, which I'm not going to be able to remember off the top of my head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a look at another project on a different screen just so that I can see how I've done that before. So no, I do not need a browser window to do that. So So for those that are interested in having a look at the user secrets file, it can normally be found in your users folder under your username, and then it is under just where I need to remember myself. I will find it in a minute. Um, so under your users folder, your username under app data, and then is voluntarily hidden. No, my brain is failing me. I can't remember where it gets stored, so I just do a quick Google. So if you do want to read a bit more about the user secrets, some really good docs on the .NET Core website. So here we go. So that's where it gets stored. So it's under app data, Microsoft user secrets. It's under updated roaming, Microsoft user secrets, and then you get a whole list of GUIDs. So you find the one that's either got your project name on it today. So I'm going to be looking for an older one. I want to see what that looks like. Just so that I can see what the connection string looks like. So I know it has something like server equals localhost and the port number, and yeah, my Surface really isn't happy trying to do all of this. I wonder. Right, so typically the file I've just opened doesn't actually have what I wanted in there. So never mind, let's try another one. One that I know should have the thing that it is I'm looking for. Okay, cool. Right, here we go. So I've done it a slightly different way in there. So I'm just going to follow that convention for the time being. So we have it named like so. There is a reason behind this as well, which I can come to later on. So got connection string. So connection strings, MySQL. I'm just going to call this community. Community fit challenge MySQL. And the connection string for that looks like, so server equals localhost, user equals root, database equals community fit, and password equals password. So apparently I don't need the port number, which I thought I did, but we'll see. I'll see how this goes. So one of the other benefits about Entity Framework is it can do migrations for us. So it means we can make incremental changes to the database. And if we make a change that we're not quite happy with, we can just kind of roll it back to the previous version without having to try and rewrite the whole database schema again. So in order to be able to enable that, we first have to, again, in the package manager console, we can just do enable migrations, and that shows you, say that's an older command that I've just tried to use, so we can use add migration instead. And this is probably going to tell me there's either a missing name, so, but it may not know how to do some of this because we've not done any of the code so far, but we'll see what it does. So when you run one of these commands, it does try and rebuild the solution just to make sure there's nothing that's broken. Um, if there are errors, it won't compile and it won't create the migration for you. So we can see that it's done its restore for the extra packages it required for doing the entity framework. Okay, so this is currently using the SQL Server database provider because I've not actually set it up to use the Pomelo one yet. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come down into Startup, and in here, so we can see that there's already a default connection here, and that's from us adding in the identity stuff to be able to handle user logins. So what I'm going to do, so we can see this application DB context here. So what I want to do is I want to change this so that it's using our own context, which is going to be using the entity framework version. So what I'm going to do so that we can do that, let's see, I'm going to create a new database context in the same place that this existing one is. I'm going to add a new class. And when Visual Studio decides it's going to catch up, okay, so I'm going to call this a community DB context. And so what we're going to need to start to think about is modeling out the application and what sort of properties we want to collect, what sort of information, how we're going to store that information, how we're going to display it back to the user. So what we're what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to create a separate project, which is just going to be a class library, which this web project can inherit from. And we'll be using something called the repository pattern to kind of interact with uh, those classes. Um, First things first, I need to get this hooked up to the database. So what I need to do here. So we are going to have, this is going to pull in um, the entity framework core identity, and we are going to have a community fit user class. So the fact that it's between these angle brackets just means that it's another type that we're going to create. And I'm going to use a Visual Studio shortcut. I'll just hit Alt Enter to get this pop up. I'm just going to generate that class in a new file. So that's now resolved that for us. So we've got rid of the red squiggly underline, and if I hit F12 on there, I get taken into this class, and this needs to inherit from identity user, because everyone that's registered for the website is going to be a community fit user, but we want them to have all the stuff that we get out of the box from identity. So there's a couple of other things that we want to add to it. So we know everyone is going to be part of a group. Come to that later. So one of the easiest things to currently, just to start off with, is we're going to want them, let's just say full name. There's going to be a type string, and we'll capture to start off with. We'll also get them to fill out their initial weight in kilos. So now we've done that. So we've got an error here. So I think this is just saying we need a constructor for this. I'm trying to do this from memory a little bit. Maybe context options builder, I think it needs. So that's not right. Okay, let me think. Let me see how I normally do this. So as you can probably tell, if you've just joined, I'm completely new to streaming. It's quite weird having to try and talk all your way through something, and not necessarily getting any feedback. I'm keeping an eye on the chat. So we've got one person in there so far, Andre. But yeah, hopefully I'll grow the audience throughout. But I am going to make these videos available on YouTube after. Yeah, we'll see how we go. So what was I wanting to have a look at? I wanted to how do I normally do this? So we normally have DB context options, which takes in our type. So that's not a builder anymore, that's options, so we'll use options as a keyword. And that's moaning because I can't spell it properly. So all being well and good, this should all start to work in a second. So I can't do identity user, I need to do identity DB context here. There we go, cool. One of the other things I prefer to try and do is just try and keep the file as clean as possible and just remove any of the using directives that are at the top here that aren't actually needed. Doesn't make a huge amount of difference, but well, yeah, I think it just makes the code look a bit cleaner. So the other thing I need to do is let's just call the base constructor to create the model. Now what we can do is we can start modeling out some of our tables for the database. So only got one table really at the moment, and that's the user. So what I'm going to do here is just create a DB set for a community fit user, and I'll just call this users. So I'm just going to save this. Then what I need to do is I need to come back over into our startup, and I'm just going to comment this out to start off with, and add in our own community fit DB context. So I want to pass in a couple of options into here. So I would like to tell it to no, to use MySQL, and here is where I can do so get this out of our user secrets. So we can just take it from can't spell MySQL. And Visual Studio's decided to go slow on me again. Right, so I should be able to do that. and it should get my connection string for me. And I think that's all I really need now. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to see if this works. So I'm going to add migration, just say use table, and I don't think I needed to wrap that in quotes. I think that might break it. So, and what does happen with the migrations is we get this migrations folder, and you can see if you actually look inside these files. Okay, so it's realised we've got more than one DB context at the moment. So I'm just going to delete these quotes, and I'm going to tell it which context to use. Not family. Leave it DB context. I was being impatient. Right. So this is now going to add the migration. So this initial, that is that first migration that I ran. And then we can see that there's now a new migration that's now been added. So we can see that there's a use table that's now been scripted and everything. And now, moment of truth, if I run update database, it will either connect to the database and run all of the SQL scripts it has created for us behind the scenes, or it won't work. We shall see. I'll see Andre's getting used to some of the stream elements commands in the chat. So same thing again as with the migration. I need to specify the actual context I want to use to update the database with. So what I can do is I can start typing, just hit tab, and it will give me the autocomplete eventually. So there we go. It's decided that it's not got the correct connection for us to connect to the MySQL instance. So looks like I have an issue with how I was trying to read the connection string. So what I'm going to do, just want to see if it might just be as simple as doing this. So you've got connection strings object with that as a name. Yeah. Right. There we go. So let's try. So yeah, okay, that's fine. So we're calling get connection string, so it's going to look inside our user secrets. It's going to look for this connection string, so it's going to look for something with this as the name, and then it's going to grab that as a value. So let's try that again. And we've got an error again. Great. So So just trying to remember if there's something specific we need to do. I thought it would create the database if it didn't already exist, but we may need to tell it to do that. If I can remember how to do that. There is an ensure created that we can use for it. If I can remember where we can specify that. Just trying to remember how we do that now. Uh, so I'm just looking at an old project that I'd done, just seeing how I used to do this. Okay. So let's have a look. So it looks. No sound, Andre. It's probably me just thinking, trying to figure out how to do this. And that's probably another reason why I need to look at getting some background music as well. So how would I do this? Benny Hill music, very funny. So what I'm going to do, I'm drawing a blank, so I'm going to revert to Google and I'm going to search for core ensure database created. Right, so we can do it. Sure, there are easier ways to do this. So should just be able. Somewhere in here. No, not this one. Thought they should have. There's got to be another way of doing this. Show created. There we go. So that is what I want to do, but just need to figure out where to call it. Maybe I can do it inside here, maybe. No. Um, I've done this so many times before and I've forgotten. I need to get better at trying to just fill while I'm looking at things. So currently must have. So I am going to need to wrap this up fairly shortly. I think I've been going for nearly an hour and a half or so. Um, yeah, almost dead on an hour and a half. Right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to come back to this. But kind of this is just kind of the basics as setting something up. I'm hoping somebody might have found this useful, hopefully, and I'll try and do this another stream at some point in the future, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks for joining. Um, catch you guys later. See ya. Bye.